In this video, I want to talk about object complements. And an object complement is that part of those words or that word in the sentence or the group of words you have that will equate itself with an object so that you can see an equal sign happening between the object and the object complement. So it adds to the object's identity. Now, if you can find the object, that's the key. So you need to first find the subject, the verb, and then a direct object. And most often direct objects will be those that have object complements. So let's take a look at the pattern, and then we'll take a look at how to find these things. The pattern is subject, verb, direct object plus object complement. Alright, so it's subject, verb, and I'm saying that the object complement completes the identity of the direct object, so there's an equal sign happening here. Direct object equals object complement. So you need to be able to see in the meaning of the sentence that this one is being equated to that, these two. Now, elected here is the verb for our samples, sentences. Elected. Who or what elected? We. So verb, subject. We elected who or what. Do we get an answer? Yes, Walter. But is Walter a subject complement? Well, let's see. Does we equal Walter? No. So this has to be a direct object. Now, what is this? Well, can you see that Walter is being equated to the president here? And another thing about these direct objects and object complements, the equation is going to be drawn up by the subject. Usually, almost all the time, it's going to be drawn up by the subject. Is the subject making an equation between the direct object and the object and this word? Yes. So this is an object complement. If you can see this equation sign happening. Okay. All ants think sugar a delicious food. Think is the verb. Who or what think? All ants. Subject. All ants think what? Sugar. Now, before we call it a direct object, we need to make sure it's not a subject complement. So we ask, are all ants being equated to sugar? No, so that can't be a subject complement. It has to be a direct object. Now what's this? Is there an equal sign being drawn up between sugar and this, and the equal sign being placed there by the subject? Yes, the ants are making an equal sign between the subject and the delicious food. So this is an object complement. We call it an OC. The buyer called the car old. Called is the verb. Who or what called? The buyer. Subject. The buyer called who or what? The car. Well, wait. Let's make sure it's not a subject complement before we call it a direct object. Is the buyer being equated to the car? No. So this has to be a direct object. Now, is there an equal sign being drawn up between this, and the equal sign being drawn up by the buyer? Is the buyer calling the car old? Yes. So this is an object complement. Now, this may look like an adjective, but because of the way it's functioning in this word group, it's really short for an old car. And then you see the two things being equated. But let's not get caught up about thinking this is an adjective. If you do so like that, you're working on a very variable list, a list that changes quite a bit, a flexible list. No, let's just look at how it functions in the sentence. There's an equation being drawn between these two, so this has to be an object complement. Now sometimes there'll be some words in here like the buyer called the car to be old or something. Thought the car to be old. That would sound a little better. So let's see how it works out here. She labels these cars as collector's items. Labels is the verb. Who or what labels? She. Subject. She labels who or what? These cars. Now, before we call it a direct object, let's make sure it's not a subject complement. Does this equal this? Does she equal these cars? No. So this is a direct object. Now, is this as acting like an equal sign? Yes. Making these objects, this direct object, equal collector's items. And is the equation being done by the subject? Yes. So even though we do have a word here, I do want you to see that you still have the direct object and the object complement. This is just a conjunction. We'll worry about that later. I want you to be able to find the object complement. Now another thing to remember is that all object complements are going to be nouns.